Hey, it's Mike Frieder here with On-Call Compliance Solutions, and I'm back with another compliance tip of the week. Today we're talking about DFARS, NIST SP 800-171, and CMMC. Should I migrate everything to the Azure Government Cloud? So hey, if you're a defense contractor who's feeling overwhelmed, tired, and alone, trying to understand all of this DFARS, NIST SP 800-171, and CMMC compliance stuff, I've got great news for you. You found your home here at On-Call Compliance Solutions, where we can help you transform into your company's on-call compliance hero. Let's jump into it. So there's a ton of noise out there in the marketplace right now in regard to Azure Government, Office 365, GCC, and GCC High, and even this concept of just putting everything into the Azure Government Cloud. So I thought it would be super helpful to create a video that explains each step of what is possible and when it comes to learning on Microsoft and their Azure Government Cloud to achieve compliance. Again, if you can lean on a place that's already compliant, that's half the battle. So first, we'll give you a super high-level summary of what is Azure Government, essentially without really driving into the nuanced detail. Azure Government is just like regular commercial Azure, but it's been built to meet the stringent requirements of government work, including defense work and even the DoD themselves. So as a result, the environment is located all within the United States, the continental United States that is, and has all US restricted personnel, unlike regular commercial Office 365 and Azure, which has a global presence, global data centers, and global people. While there are certainly some increased features, particularly when it comes to security, 99.9% of the system is exactly the same as commercial Azure, just with about a 6-month delay in updates and new features while they are verified to be safe and secure through extra processes on the back end. Now, the biggest difference is going to be that Azure Government is held only within the continental United States and is only manned by US verified persons, so it's safe for things like ITAR, EAR, and other import-export regulations that mandate that information within the system is not exposed to non-US persons, which is very important for several different types of compliance. Things like DFARS, things like NIST and CMMC, but also in law enforcement, things like CJIS, and Department of Energy has requirements around this as well. So in addition, there is rumored to be tighter physical security at these facilities as well, although none of us will ever really get to see exactly what they're doing. Okay, so now that we have the basic differences between commercial and government out of the way, let's talk about the typical ways that we can use Azure Government to get compliant for defense work. So the first and most common solution that you may have heard about is the idea of bringing in Azure Government and specifically email and the Microsoft Office duties. It's understood that Office 365 Commercial is simply not compliant for work with CUI. Simply not allowed. Microsoft states it, and if you're using Microsoft Commercial to exchange defense information or CUI via email, we want you to know that it is not allowed and you are definitely violating compliance with DFARS. So, what do you do if that's you? Well, you migrate. Simply put, that's the move. Migrate email, OneDrive, SharePoint, Teams, the whole bit, and put it in an environment that is meant to handle it. Now, here's the ultimate challenge. Office 365 ultimately will interface with computers, right? I mean, technically, you could just use it 100% web-based, and I'm not saying that it's not doable, but generally speaking, most people will want to have the traditional desktop app experience. But this also widens the scope of what must be compliant. Now our entire network needs to be compliant if CUI enters the picture, as many companies find out. It is very hard to create a proper enclave for CUI and isolate it in a normal business operation. The reason is because CUI carries with it such broad categories of information. Information like personally identifiable information, which is almost everywhere in your company. Or how about business and proprietary information? Who doesn't have some of that, right? So then what is the easy button? Well, interestingly, the easy button might just be to continue along the route you already started when you discovered that you needed to migrate to Office 365, GCC or GCC High, and the Azure Government Cloud. Well, as it turns out, one way that we could do that we happen to like very much here at OnCall is to simply spin up virtual desktop machines and servers in the Azure Government Cloud and move your entire secure infrastructure there. Whatever handles CUI. So I know what you're thinking. Hang on, this is a totally different way of thinking here. Mike, this sounds scary. And you know what? Hey, the devil's in the details. It could be scary if you don't know what you're doing. But a few years ago, it may have been very scary. But these days, using virtual machines is really, honestly, it's pretty straightforward. In fact, once logged in, I would challenge just about anyone to even really know the difference between a VM desktop experience and a regular Windows desktop when it comes to ordinary workloads. In fact, there can actually be some extreme efficiencies found. So let me paint you a picture of what this looks like because it's pretty cool. Close your eyes. Let's go back into the imagination machine and I'm going to walk you through it. Let's say you're an average small manufacturing company. First, we take your existing shop floor computers, your ERP server, and we migrate them all to Azure Government Virtual Machines. Poof, you're in the cloud. And it's compliant. Boom! Now those shop floor computers can use Azure Entra, basically the new Azure Active Directory that allows for secure access to apps, virtual machines, etc. from anywhere. Shop floor computers can use a VPN with multi-factor authentication to access those machines and apps they need through a secure and compliant tunnel, but it's now all in Azure Government, so you know it's compliant. No more questions on compliance. Now, here's why we like it. First, no more hardware nightmares. Simply put, you don't have to worry about the hardware failing anymore. You can use a thin client, you can use a basic computer, you can use anything. It doesn't really matter. That computer doesn't even have to be secured because all the security takes place inside the Azure Government environment. Microsoft is the best in the world at running their self-healing data centers, and they've got far more resources than you do when it comes to physical repair. You can connect into your secure environment on any kind of machine now too. Love your Macs? No problem. You can just use those to connect in when working on CUI. Cheap, cost-effective thin clients? Yep, those will work too. Laptops, tablets, heck, you can use your smartphone if you really want. It's all doable. Pretty cool, right? But what's really cool is now all of a sudden disaster recovery takes a quantum leap forward. Utilizing the speed of the Azure backbone, literally data center to data center speeds, you can back up entire virtual machines and environments and recover them in a matter of minutes, no matter how big the data set is. Bye-bye ransomware threat. We can just restore an entire hospital in minutes. Risk of crashing after an update or upgrade? Not anymore. With historical snapshots, you can just go back in time based on any way you would want to in this kind of a setup with snapshots. You also gain the ability to stop having to worry about growth and expansion because you don't need hardware, rack space, data centers, or anything else. Let Microsoft handle that. Hey, it's their problem. They're a big company. They can handle it. And the best part is you literally only pay for the resources you use, which is another huge advantage of the way VMs work in Azure Government. You could even set the computers to turn off during certain hours of the day automatically in order to lessen the threat footprint and time hackers have to attack. Speaking of attack, utilizing Microsoft's superior security, when it's set up correctly that is, you can completely limit your entire secure environment to be locked down to specific devices, IP addresses, and other conditional access pre-approved methods. You can tighten down security so much that it truly becomes a deny all, permit by exception for every part of the user experience, which becomes very exciting when we talk about security. What about the cost? If the experience is good and the security is good, it must be cost that becomes the problem, right? Well, that's an interesting point. And to be honest with you, at OnCall, we have been working on that for years. You see, OnCall has been doing secure cloud-hosted environments for over 20 plus years, and we have an amazing understanding of how to create the truly secure cloud all-in experience. And I have to admit, one thing that has always bothered us is the meter usage. For decades, we've been avoiding a lot of fully virtualized solutions, preferring to stick with hardware and data centers that we controlled that was ours and unmetered. However, over the last few years, Microsoft has heard our prayers and finally come out with flat rate maximum based on the machine's performance that make sense and are pretty cost effective. In fact, we've been able to essentially figure out how to make this simple and cost effective even for smaller organizations. So here's a sample walkthrough on pricing for a 10-user, one-server enclave, just to give you an idea of what is possible. We would use what we call the all-in user pricing. That is unlimited compliant IT support, the perfect endpoint security solution, which includes the best-in-class endpoint management and security, SIEM agents, etc., and a powerful virtual machine for that user with more than adequate processor memory and resources. A typical flat rate for everything runs at around $250 per user, less than a typical all-in user management rate from an outsourced IT company when you factor in the same services for your local machines. Oh yeah, and then there's the cost of the machines. Now you're still going to have Microsoft licensing costs for sure, but the difference is going to run around $20 to $30 per user. So let's say a maximum all-in rate of around $300 per user with a full M365, G3, or G5 license. Sure, you could bump up for around an extra $50 a month to G5 or E5, but that's not really required for compliance and just comes with some extra features your business may or may not need, depending upon how it wants to do security. Now, what about the server? Obviously, the server is going to depend pretty heavily on resources needed, but let's say it's going to run an accounting software, ERP software, and file shares, which can easily be done on a basic server VM. With all licensing, our management backup, disaster recovery, and security solutions, you're still well under $500 per server per month. So a typical manufacturing operation or enclave ends up all-in total cost running around $4,000 per month, maybe even a little less. That's about the cost of a mid-level managed IT service provider managing your equipment. And in our case, the service level is probably quite a bit better. You certainly can't hire an IT guy or even a fraction of an IT guy for that amount of money. And when you factor in the reality that about 75% of that money you are going to have to pay, whether you are in Azure Government Cloud or not, all of a sudden your total real cost difference to have it all in the Azure Government Cloud is, well, maybe about $1,000 per month. But you are saving on all that hardware and IT management time utilized for hardware. Factor in the next 4 years of hardware failures, upgrades, replacements, and capital outlay, and all of a sudden, we realize that actually going to the Azure Government Cloud can be pretty incredible. It can be a big win. Now, let's take it to another level. The average company will have major data recovery involved disaster about every 3 to 5 years, which means that when you eliminate the downtime being caused by on-site data disasters, well, spinning up a VM in minutes, that sounds like a pretty good idea to me. The Azure Government Cloud and recovering from failure only takes minutes. You're achieving a huge net gain. Factor in the idea that the experience in the virtual environment is enhanced by gigabit and multi-gigabit data center grade speed and reliability, and it really makes a lot of sense why everyone is moving their workloads to the cloud, including day-to-day operations. Oh yeah, and one more super cool thing is the ability to disconnect your whole work desktop from the hardware you are using. In other words, now we can have the same compliance and security no matter where we are and no matter what device we're on. Just install the simple remote desktop experience app and you're off and running. So that's a lot of information in this little tiny video. If you'd like to learn more or see if moving to your computers and servers to the Azure Government Cloud is the right move for you, hit us at one of the links below to learn more. You can schedule time with one of our compliance experts and even one of our Microsoft migration experts for free and finally find out what it takes to get compliant and maybe even eliminate some other problems. Imagine that for just a second. No more hardware problems. Getting compliant, having us do it all for you, then being able to work from anywhere on any device in the same secure environment. You know, all of a sudden, this security and compliance stuff is starting to get pretty good. No big deal. So hey, at OnCall, we take defense contractors just like you who have had this DFARS, NIST, CMMC, ITAR, and EAR information security compliance stuff dropped into their laps like a seagull on a sunny day. And we teach you how to level up and be a proper on-call compliance hero for your company, eliminating gaps, gray areas, and getting this solved, all while showing you how to leverage compliance as your secret weapon to land more defense work with higher margins. Now that's what becoming an on-call compliance hero can do for you. If you're looking for more help getting compliant, our compliance experts are always on call for you. Visit cmmccompliancesecrets.com or check out the description below for links to get help right now. If you love the content we're putting out here for you, help us out with a big thumbs up on that like button, or even better, smash the subscribe button to get the latest compliance content as soon as our compliance nerds roll it out. Until next compliance tip, my friends, stay safe and secure out there, and hit us in the comments below to let us know what you'd like to know more about when it comes to information security and compliance. I'll see you on the next one.